Hi guys, welcome back to my channel, or welcome. My name is Andrea Michelle. I am here to make a follow-up video of my why I left teaching video that I posted a very long time ago. So I've been getting comments on that video, so many more than I thought I ever was going to get. A lot of people relate to everything that I talked about in that video. And so I'm here to tell you about what I'm doing now, more about my career transition, kind of the very strange way that it all worked out, give some insight and maybe help to anybody who's kind of wanting to do a similar thing. If you haven't seen my last video, I'll link it in the description box. I was a public school teacher for 3 years. I taught first grade and kindergarten, and then I left the field completely, and now I work in the UX design and product design space. Things worked out so perfectly, but in a way that I never would have expected. And just so y'all know, I'm so happy with what I'm doing now. I absolutely love it. I would never go back to teaching personally. Okay, so I know I spoke a little bit about how this all kind of materialized in my last video. Also fill you guys in on the rest of the story, because I actually have a different job from the one that I had when I made that video. It's been a whirlwind. Let's just start at the beginning. I left teaching in the summer of 2022. So I finished out the 2021 to 2022 school year. But I had actually met the person who ended up being my boss the summer before that. About halfway through my second year teaching, I was extremely burnt out. I was having a ton of ocular migraines because of a medication that I was taking, but also highly influenced by my stress. I, at one point, had 14 ocular migraines in a single month. I was super stressed, and I was browsing on Instagram, as one does, and I found a post from a woman who had been a public school teacher. She ended up leaving to go to a software engineering boot camp. At the time, I thought that I was maybe going to do software engineering. And for clarity, I'm not a software engineer. I don't know how to code. I kind of mentioned that briefly in my last video, but I think maybe I wasn't super clear. So a lot of people have been commenting, asking me how I learned to code, which I don't know how to do. I work with a lot of engineers though, and they are brilliant and I admire them. Basically, I reached out to her and I was asking about her experience in a coding boot camp, how it was transitioning out of teaching. I pretty much just wanted any information possible. Essentially, she told me that she had gone to a coding boot camp at our local university. She lived like relatively close to me, by the way. It's probably like an hour away from me. So she told me that she had gone to the coding boot camp, and then when she graduated, she ended up starting up a media agency with her husband, who was a graphic designer. She was really just getting ramped up, and she asked me if I wanted to work with her over the summer because she could use a little bit of help. I ended up doing just some little tasks for her, helping her update things. She was mostly doing Shopify websites at the time. So I was helping her just like update product listings, inventory counts, and uploading product photos and stuff. Towards the end of my summer working part-time with her, she introduced me to UI and UX design. This is basically a job that works with, of course, the user experience and user interface of a website, how it looks and feels, how it functions, etc. And I had never really, I knew what a UI was, just user interface in general, but I was super unfamiliar with UX, but immediately I loved it. And she introduced me to Figma, which is a program that a lot of designers use. And so I just really enjoyed it. She, had hired me part-time as like a contractor, and the agreement that I told her is like, yeah, I've already committed to doing another year of teaching, and so I'm gonna go back and kind of finish that out. I understand that that's not what everybody does, but that's just something that I felt that I wanted to do, and I was also gonna be switching grade levels. So I thought, let me give it one more chance and see before I make like this huge commitment. There was definitely, I know I've gotten some questions about if there was any hesitancy on my part. I wouldn't say there was hesitancy in me like not knowing I was unhappy. Like I knew that teaching was not going to be sustainable for me long term, but I just wanted to make sure that I was pretty solid in what I was going to be going to next before I did something like that. I went back and taught another full school year. That was my year that I taught kindergarten. I mean, same thing happened. Things really didn't get better. If anything, they got more stressful and worse. Then at the end of that year, I had been in contact with this lady who I'd worked with, and she was like, yeah, our revenue is going up a little bit, so we can offer you a part-time job instead of a contractor job. The agreement was I was going to work 20 hours a week, and that was Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. I guess it was 24 hours a week. I was doing 3 8-hour days. I was like, yes, absolutely. I mean, summer I wasn't going to be working anyway as a teacher. So, and I had already resigned from my teaching job at the end of the year. So I was like, this is perfect. It's great. It'll help me get on my feet, and maybe I can work up to being full-time. That 3 days a week, part-time, but permanent job is what I was working at when I made that last video. And I was fully working from home and loving it. A few short weeks after I made that video, unfortunately, my boss at the time let me know, due to just expenses, she was gonna have to let myself and the other employee that she had hired, which is a different story. She had hired another one of her friends from a coding boot camp to be like a software developer with her. But anyways, so she let me know that she was no longer able to continue having us as employees because there just was not enough revenue. And it was very sad for all of us because we were all having a really great time working together. Admittedly, it was a scary time in my life as I hunted for a new job. I only had a few months of experience in UX design, and I really didn't know exactly what was going to happen. I just knew that I really didn't want to go back to teaching, so I was going to give it my best effort. And essentially what I told myself was I'd give myself a little bit of time to try and find a job, and if it didn't work out, I would supplement my income with substitute teaching. I was still living with my parents at the time. I get that that also gave me a cushion. Super transparent about the fact that that made everything a lot less stressful for me because I wasn't working to support myself. I will say that as a teacher, it's nice that you get the summer break time if you're not teaching summer school, because that gives you like a built-in 6 or 7 weeks to job hunt. Basically, I was job hunting and just like finishing up my work with her. I was firing out my resume on LinkedIn tastefully though. I didn't like apply to too many places. Starting to get a little bit discouraged just because, I mean, it's tough to find a job when you have 2 months of experience. And on LinkedIn, a recruiter actually reached out to me and gave me a call on the phone and said, I have this company, their product team all left, and we are looking to hire from the ground up, and we're not looking for a super high amount of experience. We're basically just looking for people who really want to learn, aren't going to have an ego, and are basically just very receptive to being super collaborative. That was like music to my ears. I was like, you're going to hire me to do this job that I am so interested to learn more about and fully understand that I don't know too much yet. Like, truly get on my level and like understand. That was amazing. And I think that that has just been like the biggest blessing and craziest timing. So I get it doesn't always work out like that for everybody, but I will say, at least in my experience, it's not what you know so much as your willingness to learn. I think that was like my number one thing that I just was very transparent about in all my job interviews. And by all my job interviews, I mean all my job interviews with this company, because I actually didn't interview anywhere else. I did get an interview at one other company, but it was when I was pretty far down the process with the company that I actually ended up accepting the job. So I canceled the job interview. So I ended up getting 3 interviews with the company that I currently am at, all over Zoom, I think. The recruiter once on the phone, he set up a Zoom interview, and then like the Zoom interviews just kind of followed. Maybe it was 4. I think I met with the person who was my boss when I first started there, the person who was his boss, the CEO of the company, and the HR person. It was kind of like a longer process. I will say that, like when I got my teaching job, I did 1 interview during COVID with the principal, and she called me like an hour later and was like, hey, you got the job. In my one experience, my one company after, it was definitely like a longer interview process than it was with teaching. I feel like teaching, they're in such a shortage that you do 1 interview and they're like, okay, perfect. If you seem even somewhat qualified, like you're in there, we're throwing you in there with the kids. Whereas with this, it was a little bit different, and they were asking more how I work with a team. And I will say, One thing that was absolutely amazing that I am so thankful for is each and every person who I interviewed with was so impressed that I was a teacher, and that really helped me to get the job that I'm at now, I will say. Everybody knows a teacher, either has a friend who's a teacher or a family member who's a teacher. A lot of people get it. Like, they don't get it as much as somebody who's been in it, but they understand that teaching takes a lot of patience, a lot of organizational skills, a lot of coordinating. So definitely play those up in your interview. Even if you lack technical skills, I would really just talk up your soft skills. Although I haven't done XYZ, that's very niche to whatever company you're applying to, just make sure you're like, but I am a lifelong learner. You don't have to say it like that. It's a little bit cheesy, but just say like, I am very receptive to new information. I pick up quickly. I am good with thinking on my feet, because in the classroom, you know, you're always having to pivot and change plans. I'm very communicative, because you gotta like think about the things that you did as a teacher that also apply. You know, if something goes wrong in your classroom, you can quickly come up with a plan B, or you already have a plan B ready to go and ready to take action on. So I think spinning those things and not mentioning too many specifics is important, because in any other industry, they're going to have their own industry specific terms and knowledge. So they're not going to know anything about teaching unless they were a teacher. Just like spinning it to be applicable to whatever you are going for, I think is very helpful. I do think that I got very lucky and blessed that I found such a good fit first try. But I do think that me being open, transparent, and honest was extremely helpful. So I would definitely advise you to do that. Don't go into it with ego or trying to pretend that you're something that you're not, especially if this is going to be like your first or second job in this industry. So how my role has transformed: I originally got hired as just a UX designer. And then 3 weeks after I got hired at the company, my boss ended up leaving. And then I got a new boss who is fantastic. He started January of 2023. So I now do both UX and product work. And I didn't even know what a product department was and what that even meant, but I'm doing it now. So that's fun. It really just goes to show like there's so many things that you may not even know exist, but you can pick up on them and end up really liking them. Kind of the two different aspects of my job now is UX design. So I work at a finance company, and so we have a finance software that people log into to request funds, basically. And so I help design that web app, and I also work on the product side. So I work with 2 teams of engineers, and I help to set prioritization. So what order things should be worked on, what needs to come first, making sure that things are staying on schedule, and also organizing Jira, which is a program for product and software teams to organize tickets. The engineers will work on a ticket, get it tested, and then mark it as done. So I'm the person who's like writing up those tickets, keeping everything organized. It sounds super simple, but there's actually a lot to it. But organization and keeping things all aligned is something that I really like, and I think that organization in general is like one of my strengths. It has been a wild ride. It's definitely nothing that I expected I would do, but I really like it. By the way, I want to like put a little tie a bow around all of this and say that I am still such a novice at everything I do. I still have so much to learn about design and product. And I'm sure I will be learning about both of those things for the rest of my life, for the rest of my career. And so, yeah, there's definitely been times where I felt very behind, not discouraged, but overwhelmed, and like I'm never gonna be at the same speed or level as the people around me. Something else that I would advise you to do is just be very receptive to coaching and mentoring and learning. Like, I am definitely the type of person who, if somebody's gonna offer me up some information, I'm gonna like soak it all in. I think one thing I struggled with at the very beginning was asking questions, because I didn't want to ask silly questions. I'm at the point at my job now where I'm comfortable enough and I'm like asking questions, even if they're silly or somebody says something and I don't understand, I'm like, can you please repeat that? At the end of the day, like, the person explaining something to you is going to want you to understand. They're not going to want you to pretend you understand and then like go back and not be able to execute later. So Yes, it has been a wild ride. I am really, really liking it, and I'm super thankful. My most stressful days now are like nothing compared to my average day of teaching. I'm so much less tired. I think, like, circling all the way back to the ocular migraines, I think that I've had one ocular migraine that I can remember in like the past year. My health is so much better. I, knock on wood, have not gotten sick in a year, I think. Not around children and their germs. I will say I do miss my students, like personality wise, and the actual teaching aspect of it. I miss them, but I don't miss anything else about teaching. Not even a smidge. It's really just the kids and like those relationships that I miss, because it's different now. I'm working with grown-ups. Anyways, I'm going to leave this video here. Thank you guys so much for watching this video, and leave any questions, comments, thoughts down below, and I'll talk to you guys soon. Bye, everybody.